I was supposed to, it was underneath it.
Commissioner Barr, you okay with the invocation?
Yes, you saw it, please.
Good morning. Would we all please stand for the invocation provided by Commissioner Barr, and then we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow in prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we say thank you for this opportunity. Lord, guide us, direct us, and use us this day to serve the citizens of Washington County. May we honor and glorify and please you in all that we do and say. Just thank you for this season, for the opportunities that lie ahead. We pray in thy precious name.
Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to call the Washington County Board of County Commissioners November 28th, 2017 meeting to order. With that, we have two sets of minutes to approve, and we'll start with the November. We'll do them individually. We'll start with the November 7th minutes. Clerk Lum had sent out the minutes to us for review, so hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review them, and now we're ready to approve. So on the November 7th minutes, we need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Do we have a motion, a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Okay, the November 14th minutes. We need a motion to approve those as well. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Abstain.
Okay, you have two abstentions, Commissioner Myers and Commissioner Barr. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 3-0 and 2 abstain. That's right. Thank you. Commissioners' reports and comments. We'll start with Commissioner Kiefer.
I think last night's MML meeting hosted by the town of Clear Spring was a great meeting. It was well attended and by all of the commissioners. I thought about after we left, they were looking for a host for January, maybe if not January, a future meeting that we could sponsor for MML. I believe we did that one time last year, and we had a good turnout. So I think it would show good appreciation to our municipalities. We work very well with them, and they do a great job for their citizens. And if we could just share in that meeting, I think that would be a good idea, something to consider.
Thank you. Commissioner Klein.
Yeah, again, congratulations to Mayor Paul Host. And I want to thank all the county employees who had to work over the holidays to keep the county running, from the police to the 911 operators. I think some water quality people had a sewer break Thanksgiving morning. And also to the fire companies down in South County who had a 40-acre fire. I think it was upwards of 40 firemen for over 24 hours keeping a fire contained. So I want to thank all our employees who worked during the holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Myers.
I too want to congratulate Paul Hose. I didn't realize it was 32 years, and I think back about the number of years and other service he had before that. It's quite a that's quite an endeavor. And of course, it'll be 34 if he fills his 2-year term out. But I want to congratulate him. It's something. Even though it's a small town, it's still a commitment, and I congratulate him on that.
Commissioner Barr.
Well, good morning. It's good to be back. I might add to that, congratulations to Paul Hose, but over and above, a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to ride in the Clear Spring Parade with Senator George Edwards. And halfway through the parade, George throws it up into park, and the parade moves on, and he just sits there. And I said, "What's the matter?" He says, "I want you to look around." He said, "This is what America is all about. The town of Clear Spring." He said it's a perfect example. He said everyone knows everyone, everyone looks out for everyone, everyone helps everyone. The mayor does a fantastic job, and so I'll never forget that. I mean, he just stopped the vehicle right in the middle of the parade and started giving me a lesson on what it is to not only be an American but be in a small town America. So
How long did it take you 5 gallons of gas there?
A couple other things. It's a busy time of the year. The annual Chamber of Commerce Business Economic Development Summit, Audubon by Sue, was here a couple weeks ago. A great event, good turnout. I think it helps to get invigorating the business community, throughout. The Symphony Ball was 2 weeks ago, another fine endeavor, annual major fundraiser. We also, I know a couple of us attended the People's Choice with the Community Foundation. The Community Foundation of Washington County is now up to about 35 or 36 million in endowment, in perpetuity for this community. So there's a lot of good things going on over the next several weeks throughout the holidays. You've got the museum, the Miller House, the Historical Society, the list goes on and on and on. And so hats off to each and every one of them, and as many as we can, as commissioners, can support, participate in, be visible. I think it's just good for our community. So, thank you.
Thank you. For myself, I'd also like to congratulate Mayor Host of Clear Spring. He's well respected in the community. He's done a wonderful job in Clear Spring, and he'll continue to guide the way that he's always guided. So congratulations, Mr. Host. Also, a while back, I know we talked a little bit about local preference on some contracts. And did we ever do anything with that as far as looking at other local jurisdictions to see how they handle local preference?
Yeah, I inquired with our former purchasing agent Karen Luther, and have now discussed that with, discussing that with Mr. Curry, our current purchasing agent, regarding that and what other counties are doing.
Okay.
That's part of the question as well.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And then I think Commissioner Meyer said there's some cities, municipalities that do local preference. Did you reference Frederick or?
Oh, yeah. Like, for instance, Cumberland.
Okay.
2.5%.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, there's, Cumberland does do a radius of Cumberland itself. It doesn't just confine it to the parameters of Cumberland City. They have, I think it's a 50-mile radius of Cumberland.
I'd just like to see some results or have some discussion on that. Okay, anything else, commissioners? Okay, thank you. Reports from county staff. We have any staff here today care to provide a report? County administrator.
Thank you, sir. A couple items. First, Mr. Barriano sent a letter October 13, 2017 that I believe all the commissioners have received for services, and that would be in the amount of $10,000 for the services provided in Annapolis, and that would simply require the commissioner's approval if you wish to move forward.
I think we've done that in the last couple of years now with great success. So I'd like to make a motion to move forward on that.
Second.
Motion.
Myers,
Okay, we have a motion, a second for the request. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
One of the fantastic things about being able to speak with you is sharing the good news stories. And last week received a kind email that I wanted to share with you very quickly regarding Mr. Goodrich and planning. It says, part of the message is, I did want to say thank you for your detailed answer to my inquiry. I will be sure to pass this information on so that we are all informed. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to respond to my email. You're truly an asset to Washington County, and I applaud your high level of customer service and for Steve's knowledge and detail that he provided this customer as well as others. And secondly, the turkey trot, I'm sorry, the exact numbers fail me. I think it was approximately 1,200 people that participated, and I wanted to thank Doug Levine, who was out there on Thanksgiving morning, and Jamie Dick and some of his staff that were also out there and organized that event again, and Dr. Altieri for hosting it. It's a wonderful event that is a wonderful way to kick off Thanksgiving. So thanks to both of them.
You running in it?
Oh, I didn't see that, so we'll have to address that. But they did a great job. Wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Boards and commissions?
I have two this morning. The first one is the Hagerstown Regional Airport Advisory Commission. We'd like to appoint Gary Bachrath. He was serving an unexpired term. He would like to serve a first full term through October 31st, 2020. And they would like to appoint Robert Guest to serve a first 3-year term on the board due to a member fulfilling a 2-year term already.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Barr, second by Commissioner Myers. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. The second one is for the Housing Authority of Washington County. Would like to appoint Ayodeji Badaki and William Beard Jr. to serve first 5-year terms. They also were serving unexpired terms on the Housing Authority of Washington County through November 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Okay, last chance for county staff. Okay, moving forward, citizens' participation. We have any citizens here today to care to participate? Okay, that is scheduled for 10:25. If we have any citizens come in between now and 10:25, we'll ask them if they're here to participate. So let's move forward. We can't do the public hearing until 10:30.
We do have Miss Small is here.
Okay. We can move, is that for this afternoon? On the,
Do you have information available since we're running ahead of schedule?
okay, so we'll go down to the this afternoon's, let me find it here.
2:05.
Conveyance of real property located at 13526 Pennsylvania Avenue. Ms. Small, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Hope everyone had a nice holiday.
Yep.
So I'm here to present the conveyance of real property located at 13526 Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm Susan Small, Real Property Administrator with the Engineering Department. My motion today is to move to declare certain real property located at 13526 Pennsylvania Avenue as surplus property and to accept the bid offer received and approve the conveyance of the same and authorize the execution of the necessary documentation to finalize the conveyance. Now, if you recall, staff was directed by the Board of County Commissioners on August 1st, 2017 to solicit bids to purchase this property. The county's intent to convey and to accept bids was duly advertised on October 17th, 24th, and 31st, with sealed bids due by 10 a.m. on November 7th. We received one bid to purchase the property for $72,100. It's been determined by the county that the property is not needed for public use, and it's being conveyed for fair market value. So our fiscal impact would be the income from the sale of the property of $72,100. And there is the bid offer attached, as well as the aerial and the ordinance.
Any questions or comments? I'm just curious. Once we transfer a property back to the tax rolls, when does it become, and I'm just asking, I'm not looking for it to happen, other than when it's supposed to happen. When does it actually officially get back on the tax rolls? Once all of the
Immediately, right?
forward.
As soon as closing happens, the taxes will be finalized with us and it'll transfer to the new property owner.
Aren't they prorated?
Yes,
When
if
it
there's anything due, we'll close it out at closing and then it'll transfer to the new property owner.
It's collected at closing the first year, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, any questions, comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for the approval of the recommendation. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you'd like, I can present the next item.
Is that an afternoon item?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah, let's go to the 2:10 agenda item. Economic Development Commission. and that'll be presented by Administrator Slocum.
Thank you. This is a second time we've discussed this or presented this information to you, briefed you on it last week. It is a request for consideration, financial consideration for the Economic Development Commission. There are a total of 12 members and six serve on the executive board. The other commissions, and including the Women's Commission, I do apologize, it says in the agenda request Women's Board, that should read Women's Commission, is provided a spending account. The EDC is charged with the following strategies and priorities to align with Washington County Division of Business Development. And those are to assist with the retention and growth of existing business, attract new business, facilitate workforce development, identify and prioritize economic development needs and opportunities, and support economic development objectives. The EDC members must remain current on various industry topics and networking to do so, and this account would allow some monies to be spent by those individuals for networking and conference and additional learning that would keep them up to speed and on par with the discussion subjects that we are asking them to perform throughout the community with our business community. So that would be a total of $500 each for the executive board members and $250 for the other members, which would arrive at a total annual cost of approximately $4,500. It was asked last week, where would the money be from? I'm requesting that the first year it be considered from commissioner contingency, and in the next year it be budgeted into the business development operating budget. And that's all I have.
Any questions?
Yeah, question. Director Cassie Lewis, would she have a per diem already existing with her authority?
She does have a spending, yes.
And how much is that?
That is approximately, for all types of advertising and so forth, I believe that is approximately $70,000 which includes advertising in various media sources.
This what we're asking now, couldn't that be included out of her per diem, or
If that's,
additional?
if the commissioners so choose, it certainly could be.
But it's 70,000 what she has for her use.
It's for spending of the various expenditures, including advertising and other expenses, I believe, sir. I can certainly find more information about that in the entire, yeah. But if the commissioners so choose, it could come from that account as well.
So being mid-year, would it only be half of this amount, or would it be?
As it is here, it could certainly be cut in half, yes.
This will be effective what date?
We would begin in January if it was approved. Yes.
I don't know, I'm just asking, maybe that's not the right thing to do at this time, because.
I think so. Huh? Sure. If you want to implement it now, you get 6 months. I mean, simple math.
And would we want to continue out of the contingency fund at least through this fiscal year, since her monies have already?
Some of them are already spoken for, yes.
I don't know, I'm
Yes.
just asking. Yeah. And then we could look at it, I don't know.
Sure.
You all decide.
We can do whatever pleases the commissioners. We can look at taking it out of there, and if that's not possible, I can return to
If
you.
we have an existing
Here's a
fund
very
source that could
possible.
already exist, why are we creating additional money? It could come out here with our direction and authority to be spent.
Yeah, and as the agenda report indicates, it will come in future years from that account, and it'd be addressed in the budget cycle.
Okay, so does everyone have any other thoughts, comments?
So your suggestion is to do half the amount presented?
That's up to you all.
Mid-year.
This was a thought since we're in January.
I think it's a good idea. The plan in general, it really helps to raise the status and importance of EDC, and it gives us more people out in the field, so to speak, more of an opportunity to reach out to businesses where staff may not always be able to do that. So I think the concept is great. I'm indifferent on where the funds come from. I'll defer to the commissioners, but I think it's a good idea.
If the funds already exist, I'd recommend it to come from the oversight of Cassie. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were pointing at me.
It doesn't matter to me. That's the feeling of the commission, that's fine.
I'm okay with adding to the current budget. I mean, knowing in respect of 6 miles north and 6 miles south, what we're up against, I think this whole thought process is good and long overdue, probably. And whether we do it mid-year here at 50% or we just go ahead and fund it for 2018 in full, I'm okay either way.
Commissioners, we do have a position coming available for business leader as well as one for public relations and marketing. Our EDC, as I think they mentioned in our last meeting, has been strong advocates for going aggressively in marketing Washington County, how much it has to offer. So I think that account, as well as Cassie's account, will be used frugally, yet very ambitiously to promote Washington County. So that's for whatever that might be worth to you.
Okay, so we're deciding on the amount. I'm okay either way myself, but that was just a thought when I said, how do we fund it? So you did.
I'll make a motion. I'm okay with the full amount for our 2018 budget cycle, and separate and above the current economic development executives.
Which is how it is presented here.
That's correct. Yeah. So as it's being presented, I'm okay with it.
So contingency fund and the full $4,500.
That's where I'm at.
And then and then it'll be in the budget in 2018.
19, right?
I thought
I mean, in our budget cycle in March, which is 2019.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. You understand? Okay, and we also have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, discussion. I'm okay with the concept, but I won't support the additional funds. I think the funding already exists in Cassie Lewis's budget to accommodate that, but I like the concept, but I think the fund source already exists.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
4-1. Okay, thank you. Okay, back to the front page, public hearing. Application text amendment RZ 17007. Jill Baker.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Did we have some citizens come in since? Yeah. Jill, before we get started, I do need to back up here. I did say I'd come back to citizens' participation. Did we have any citizens come in the last 10 minutes that would care to participate? Please come forward and state your name and the address. Sorry, Jill.
I'm sorry. Arthur Nichols. I'm not sure if I have anything to add to this yet, but we'll like to see what's going to correspond here.
I'm sorry, but
On the text amendment.
May I say something? I met with Art about, he has a question in regards to the way that 007 is written, okay, of what it applies to. And so I guess I'm asking Kurt, should the question come prior to us hearing from Jill? Or
Probably afterwards.
okay. Thank you. Okay. Back to the public hearing application for text amendment RZ. Any other citizens here to participate? Okay, back to the text amendment RZ 17-007. Jill Baker, Chief Planner.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Hold on here. Let me read the oath here real quick.
You're getting me all excited. I keep starting.
Well, I'm all flipped around here. We've been morning, afternoon. Let me go back to the start here. That's closed session. Okay, next on the agenda is public hearing concerning application is being made to portions of the Washington County zoning ordinance, including Article 3, et cetera. And the purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure will be as follows. We'll first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Okay, now I'd like to ask Jill to present the information.
This doesn't need an oath.
Are you sure? I can go. Okay. Again. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jill Baker. I am Chief Planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning. So presented here this morning are several amendments to the Washington County zoning ordinance. The purpose of these amendments is to clarify various sections of the ordinance relating to boarding facilities and event facilities. There are a wide variety of amendments proposed in this case, so I may bounce around here a little bit, but I'm going to do my best to be very clear and very thorough about what we're proposing here today. The first group of amendments that we are going to discuss in this case are related to boarding facilities within Washington County. Since the inception of the ordinance in 1973, there have been opportunities for private residences to quote-unquote board or room non-family members in their home for compensation. This amendment seeks to continue these uses, but to use some more modern terms and clarify the different levels of intensity so that citizens have a clear expectation of the various types of boarding facilities permitted in the county. To begin our analysis, these amendments, it was important to understand that for boarding facilities, while being very similar in the types of use, can have varying degrees of intensity and therefore varying impacts on neighboring properties and infrastructure. So to define these different levels of intensity, staff looked specifically at 3 different variables. First, owner-occupied versus non-owner-occupied. Second, the duration of stay. And third, the number of rooms available for boarders. So in order to clarify the ordinance's intent to recognize these different levels of intensity, the following amendments are proposed here this morning. The first amendment that is being proposed is to remove the term of tourist house. This is a very obsolete term. It's really no longer used. It's more considered a boarding house or a rooming house in today's standards. That term is currently used in the RS, RU, and RM districts. That will be absorbed as part of the definition for a boarding home. We're also seeking to combine the boarding and rooming homes under one category with the intent that, number 1, they would be a special exception use in the RT, RS, RU, and RM districts. They would also be a special exception use in the AR, EC, and P districts. Currently, they are already permitted in the rural districts of rural village and rural business. As part of the definition, boarding and rooming homes would be owner-occupied. They would be limited to 4 roomers or boarders, and they would be different from a bed and breakfast because they would allow longer-term stays. So then to clarify the bed and breakfast uses, we are allowing them currently as special exception uses in the residential transition RT and RU districts. They're already allowed in the RS is a special exception district, so we would like to mimic that in the RT and RU. They are currently permitted as a special exception use in the RS. The proposal is to add them as special exception uses in the RT and RU districts. As part of the definition, we'd like to remove the sentence in that bed and breakfast definition that allows them to be accessory uses in the AR, ECP, and RV, and actually move that into the table of land uses. We would be proposing to change their allowance in the RV from accessory use to a special exception use that would be consistent with the urban residential zonings then. Also for bed and breakfast, we would be limiting the number of rooms to 5. The reason for that is consistent with the building code and dealing with sprinkler systems. You can have up to 5 guest rooms without having the sprinkler systems. If someone would want more than 5 rooms, they could be classified as a hotel motel in the urbanized areas. And in the rural areas, to deal with this, we are proposing to add a new use and definition for what we're going to call a country inn. So to expand upon that issue of a country inn, it's basically adding a layer of slightly more intense accommodation facilities to our rural area. It would go above a B&B and allow slightly more rooms. So first of all, we've added a definition of a country inn. It provides additional flexibility and opportunities for homeowners by not requiring them to be owner-occupied. We're not going to require the country inn to be owner-occupied. We're proposing to limit the number of rooms in a country inn to 10. Anything above 10 rooms would be considered a hotel motel and need to be rezoned to rural business. Also, as part of the definition, we're providing limited flexibility in the use of the inn to include on-site catering, banquet reception facilities, and meeting rooms. So the other set of amendments that we're talking about as part of this case deal with the banquet reception facilities. Currently, the zoning ordinance allows for these types of uses to occur as a special exception use in the rural areas, as well as principally permitted in the commercial districts. It's been brought to our attention that there may be other areas within the county, specifically within our growth areas, that may also be suitable for these types of uses. As these types of unconventional reception facilities are gaining in popularity, the county has sought to allow property owners to capitalize on these opportunities by recently including language into the zoning ordinance to define these uses and provide locations where these types of facilities should be located. After further review, we found there are some unique areas within growth areas that may provide opportunities for reception facilities without disturbing the residential nature of an area. Many of these locations are distinguished as being part of an old farm that has since been developed over time. These areas typically have larger lot sizes and still contain the original farmhouse and some of the accompanying outbuildings such as barns, spring houses, milk parlors, etc. These unique areas provide historic context to the urbanization of the county and how agriculture is still a strong economic driver in the county. So therefore we are asking for the following amendments that would provide for more opportunities for banquet reception facilities in the county. First, allow banquet reception facilities in the urban area by allowing them as a special exception use in the residential districts RT, RS, RU, and RM. To provide safeguards from neighboring landowners from the commercial aspect of this use, we're also proposing to require bulk requirements of a minimum of 5 acres, 300-foot lot width, 50-foot front yard setback, 100-foot side yard setback, and 50-foot rear yard setback. We're also clarifying our intent to separate the event facilities from accommodation facilities by removing the last sentence of the current definition of banquet reception facilities. We're also clarifying that definition by allowing catering facilities limited to on-site catering events only. As part of the public information meeting held by the Planning Commission, we received one comment in favor of this text amendment as part of that meeting. Since that meeting, we have received several more comments, two of which were received via email as testaments against this amendment. You have received those by email. You may have seen those over the last few weeks. The third one we just received, I believe, yesterday. I handed out to you there from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, speaking in favor of these types of uses and speaking in favor of this amendment here today. The Planning Commission has reviewed this and has recommended approval of the amendment. And that's all I have at this point in time. I guess we'll hand it over then. Yes, sir.
Jill, before you had mentioned catering, and you said catering would be for on-site only?
Meaning that we didn't think it would be appropriate for a catering facility to be located on that site and taking that off-site. So basically having a catering facility in the rural area that would be catering to other facilities outside of that area. That becomes a more intense use that can be a little bit more, what do I want to say, a little bit more intensive to the neighbors and running in and out of there all the time. It just becomes a more intense commercial use. As opposed to if we know there's a reception or a wedding or whatever you want, if the caterer is coming into the event, you fully anticipate that as part of the event. So that's how we had viewed that when we were doing these amendments.
Okay, well, we'll just hear public testimony. I'm not so sure I understand all of that. Well, we'll come back to commissioners. Opportunity. Y'all want to do it now? We'll hear what the... Okay, we will now open the public comment. We will now open the hearing for public comment. Do we have anyone here wishing to testify in the first row? Please come forward, state your name and your comments, please.
My name is Arthur Nichols, and my comment is on the banquet facilities. I don't think the setbacks that they're speaking of is sufficient to keep the noise from bothering the neighbors, is what it amounts to. I have firsthand experience with something like this, and where there was a property being used next to my property, it is not being used now, but they were having parties there twice a week, basically Saturday and Sundays, and mostly for children, which I would think that would still fall under the banquet category as birthday parties and such. And it's like, I might as well be, it was worse than living in the city. I did live in the city. I mean, you move out in the country to have peace, some amount of peace, instead of having kids playing and carrying on, which, you know, is, I understand if you're going to have a birthday party, that's what kids do. That I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with somebody having a business like that, but I think it needs to be set in a certain area that it does, you know, does not disturb your neighbors. And that's my comment.
What was your address, sir?
I'm sorry?
Your address?
13021 Spickler Road, Clear Spring.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else in the front row care to participate? Go to the second row. We have anyone in the second row that care to participate? Third row? Fourth row? Good morning.
I'm Edward Kaczynski, 55 North Jonathan Street, Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm here on behalf of Selena Wilkes on Elmwood Bed and Breakfast. We are here, there's also other people who are on the fourth row, I guess also on the second row, that have indicated support for this proposed amendment. I have some supporting information, which are various letters that have been generated over the last 6 or 8 months, some of which may be in your record already, and some may not. So I'm providing this to the county clerk. So, and I apologize, there may not be enough copies for everybody. But, we are in support of this amendment. Selena Wilkes, her sister Letty, Terry Leiter is here, as well as one of her employees, and then Anna Long, I think Convention Visitor Bureau has already voiced support. These text amendments, particularly relating to the convention or to the banquet facilities, are an attempt on the part of the staff to create more opportunities that are consistent with the comprehensive plan as it relates to agritourism and supporting business ventures in the more rural areas. As Ms. Baker testified, there it has come to light that based upon the current zoning ordinance and various properties that are particularly situated within the county, that there are opportunities for banquet facilities and or reception facilities that may not necessarily be in a specifically zoned agricultural area. So the county staff, through their study, determined that the parameters that they've set forth in the proposed amendment are sufficient in the various zoning districts that Ms. Baker testified to permit an application for a special exception. And it doesn't obviously automatically permit the use. It would require a hearing before your zoning appeals board before the actual permit would be granted. We are here to support all of the amendments actually that are being presented, because the changes in the rooming house and boarding facilities also are important, because they are necessary to keep up to date with the changes in that industry. But specifically as it relates to the reception facilities, Ms. Wilkes has developed a bed and breakfast, and basically what brought to light the issues with the zoning ordinance is her efforts to try to comply with the zoning ordinance, and based upon conflicting interpretations, some of which were asserted upon staff by me, but also even in the staff looking at it and the Board of Zoning Appeals as to just exactly what was permitted, where, and how. So this effort is an attempt to clarify it without sort of without a draconian effect of just saying, no, you can't do this. So these proposed amendments are quite consistent with the movement that has been made with the comprehensive plan by the county in recent years. It allows for a business that is similar to Elmwood Farm Bed and Breakfast to move forward and be successful, but it also opens up opportunities for other properties that would be similarly situated and or other people that might be able to fit the criteria that is there. So we're here to support that, and I've presented some letters. Obviously, this is a big picture situation. Any specifics as it relates to what is going on in Elmwood Farm and Bed and Breakfast, assuming that the text amendments would be approved, would be handled in a different form at a different time. But we're here mostly to provide our support. I think it's a move in the right direction. It's also been an example of staff working cooperatively with private enterprise and or people in the community to try to affect change that is orderly and thought out. So we would like to thank you for your consideration and urge you to pass the amendments as presented by the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in Mr. Kaczynski's row care to participate? Okay, the remaining rows, anyone in back rows care to participate? Okay, last chance for anyone to participate. All rows. Okay, commissioners, you have any questions, comments?
I have several.
Okay.
Jill, the emails of, against, could you maybe review them with us?
Sure.
Maybe you can summarize just basically what they were.
Yes, sir. The first email that I have received is from a Mr. Victor Campbell, whose address is 13428 John Martin Drive. Basically, he says that he's not opposed to these types of uses. However, the noise level coming from these types of uses are a drawback, and they are offensive to the neighbors who are trying to enjoy the peace and quiet of their neighborhood. He actually recommended installing a noise level or a noise ordinance to deal with that. The second email that we received was from a Greg and Doris Basie at 13352 John Martin Drive, again in Williamsport. Very much the same comments. They are worried about the noise and the length of time that the events go into the evening. They're also worried about traffic and strangers in the neighborhood and so forth and so on. That was received October 20th.
Okay, we have the various rural, urban, residential, multifamily, but am I correct in saying, just for the record, we have no more agricultural only in the county?
Correct.
It's all AR or
Correct.
what's the other one?
Ag-rural.
Ag-rural or
yeah.
rural village and rural business and
Correct.
so forth. So if you are in an agricultural, I guess as I look at it, the old agricultural district, anyone could use a barn. To house under the banquet reception facilities to do, as Mr. Nichols was saying about have a birthday party, start having birthday parties. Is that correct?
Under the old
Now,
agricultural
under
zone?
this new AR. I think to his point, 50-foot, 100-foot side yard. So if the barn is 100 feet from the side yard to the barn, that would mean then that they would have to, they could apply for and basically a permit to have the birthday parties there. Is that correct?
Currently, in the ag-rural district, they are a special exception use. They would go through a public hearing with the Board of Zoning Appeals. So it is possible, yes, in the ag-rural, for these uses to occur.
Right, and if they did that, they would still have to comply with the limit of occupants, sprinkler systems, exiting, handicap, different category, different condition. But the next step would be they would have to apply for and get approval for all those, correct?
Zoning versus occupancy.
Yes.
Two different animals. We're talking zoning here. Yes.
Yes.
Sir.
So there's other things in their way, more so than just knowing they can, but it is possible for that to happen.
Yes.
Okay. So that would mean anyone who would have this type of a barn or just a building or whatever that would want to do this in the rural area, not a thought through bed and breakfast like these. Kind of looking through this is kind of nice. I wish it was far enough away I could visit that, but instead of drive-by, it's local. But and I'm all for that. But I guess I do have a deep concern for the fact that if someone, because you could actually have one every day. You could have this every day of the week, and I think we got to have some consideration for Mr. Nichols' concern. I guess I don't see where we're addressing that.
So you're addressing the number of parties you can have?
Well, I mean, let me say this: I am 110% sold out for what we have to offer in Washington County and Western Maryland for bed and breakfast with the heritage, with the historical value, with the C&O Canal. I mean, this just quickly going through this. This is what we have to offer. and we have the peace and quiet of that serenity of getting away from the big city to come up here and go to a nice bed and breakfast and go to a facility that we can enjoy and come back to. But how can we differentiate? How can we take a situation where someone wants to take it and do something different that expands it to a great extent that becomes a nuisance and that we're dealing with something else? That's where I'm just trying to say we got to be careful which direction we go here without giving more limitations. I would dare say, if I could just address the young lady back in Mr. Krasinski's row, as you said, how many feet off the road or from the side yard? I mean, it looks like a distance. Am I correct? It is a distance. Yeah. So if you would have a birthday party in your barn, I don't think I would hear it from the road. No. So I guess that's my point. I'm saying that how do we, without creating I believe in the agriculture, and I'm glad Leslie's here, I believe that if you have a certain type of facility for animals, isn't it quite a distance, like 800 feet? But there's quite a 500 feet or something. I remember when I put my 2 little horses in the backyard, if I had 3, then I had to be like 100 feet from the line, but if I only had 2, I only had to be 15 feet. Kind of crazy, but that's the way our ordinance was written. And I'm saying that I believe there needs to be more protection for the situation where you have a barn that's close to the road, close to the properties, and here's a house, and here's a house, and 200 feet in, 100 on each side is the barn. And is that fair to the residents? That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Nichols, you said you resided on Spickler Road?
Correct, yes.
So what bed and breakfast or facility is located close to you?
There's no bed and breakfast close to this family started to have parties in their barn. And it just continued until whatever happened with the county came in because of the fire code and different things like that. They put a stop to it. But then they were going to try.
Is it on the corner of Spickler and 40?
No. This is 1 mile down. My property is probably within 200 feet of their barn. It's like the barn is right up against the road, probably within 50 feet of the road. If the barn was, if you had a large enough piece of property and the barn was in the middle and the kids could run around and have all the fun they want and not disturb, the rest of us. But it's just where the situation of how the buildings were set on the property. And that's where my concern is. It's just like Mr. Myers said, I used to be quite involved in zoning when I sold real estate. And I know for kennels, to put a kennel in, you had to have a certain amount of distance, from your property lines for the dogs or pets would not, disturb the neighbors. And this is, I'm not saying we're animals, but we're, it's kind of the same situation. There's a certain amount of noise that is being generated. And so I just think it needs to be, set that it won't disturb the neighbors. And personally, I don't have any problem with people, that want to have this type of business, but it just needs to be placed in, in certain areas where, like I said, that it wouldn't disturb the rest of us.
If this was 500 feet from your house, you wouldn't object.
Correct.
So I guess my question is, can we maybe introduce 500 feet of a side yard to both sides, or something of that nature, and then it would create an extra leg, an extra layer that an individual who was 400 feet away would have to come for a special exception and have their neighbors comment if for permitted use. True?
Mr. Myers, you're talking about one of 2 ways that we could deal with your concern. We can either do it separately or together. The first layer is the Board of Appeals has to special exception for these kinds of facilities in the rural area, correct?
Yes,
Jill, that's
yes.
correct. So there would be some kind of a burden on the board to consider the distance and the type of use and the neighbors' concerns when they make a decision to either allow it or not allow it. And then separately, you could have greater standards like your 500-foot setback that we could write into the amendment. And that could either separately mitigate the noise or together with the Board of Appeals, they could use that as a guideline when they make their decision. And if the property owner couldn't meet that setback, then the variance from the distance requirements would also be an option to ask the Board of Appeals to grant. So there's two ways to address your concerns. You can use them separately or together. And I think what you're saying is maybe we need to have more discussion about what they should be and add those to the text that's already proposed.
I do.
I think that's what I'm hearing
Yes.
you say.
I just think that we have that other safeguard in there for someone like Mr. Nichols. It doesn't say they can never have it, but it allows that extra layer there of maybe a question mark. Doesn't affect the bed and breakfast, doesn't affect the other facilities we're talking about, just the banquet facilities. And I guess maybe, once again, I ask, is that something that you all would be objectionable to?
Well, in this particular situation, 500 feet to the property line might be difficult in all directions to the barn. There's clearly more than 500 feet to any residence
No, the barn.
that would be affected, but to get to the property line would be a problem. So I understand the concern, but a special exception still will be required. So in other words, any neighbors that have an objection to potential noise or location or think that buffering would be necessary, they could voice those concerns, and the Board of Zoning Appeals could address it in creating specific restrictions or conditions when they grant the permit. The difficulty with 500 feet.
I'd do a number of, I mean, that's all. That was-
500 feet in
yeah.
any direction. I think what the staff has done here with the text amendments essentially has looked at this property and other properties would be similarly situated to kind of say, you have to get the special exception, but the distances seem to be safeguards that will work. That doesn't mean that you may not have adjacent neighbors that will come in to object at the special exception hearing to say, I don't think it's far enough. You can't get it far enough away from my property. In other words, you may get that opposition, but that's why the Zoning Appeals Board, though, has the ability to look at that and weigh those things and decide whether to grant the special exception or not grant the special exception, or in some way require the property owner to create some extra buffer or some extra concern. In other words, direct the music or sound in a particular way. Make sure that you stop operations by a certain time. You do you maintain a decibel level meter or do something of that nature, all of which is allowable with technology now, to minimize any adverse impact on surrounding properties or property owners that might object. So I think that the amount of time and effort that the staff has put into it, they've taken all that into consideration. By adding, and as a builder and developer, you understand, by adding one more layer, then you're not only asking for a special exception, but you then also need to be looking at a variance.
Right.
And something like 500 feet, I would think, would create that requirement almost in every situation, where otherwise it might not be necessary. So it's not that we really oppose it, but I think it just creates one more layer of regulation or restriction that has to be overcome in order to get to that point. So again, we're here to support what the staff has presented. We had very little specific input in what has been presented. However, I'm not going to sit here and say that what's occurring at Elmwood Farm wasn't a catalyst for this amendment, but certainly the specifics were not in any way directed or dictated by us. If we had a major objection to what was being presented, you can be sure that we would have addressed that. But we think they've taken a good approach. They've come up with good setbacks, side yards, front setbacks, and then the rest of the things will be addressed, as you pointed out, with site plan, adequate facilities with restrooms, and then I think at the special exception level,
The only thing I'd add to that is the fact that I can't tell you as a builder over the many years how many times we've started a project only to get some resistance to someone on the neighboring sides. They didn't see the sign, they weren't notified, they didn't remember the mail. There's just so many excuses that people for not being attentive to a special exception, and didn't get into the meeting, couldn't come, we're on vacation, whatever the case may be, and it's too late. It's too late, and I would only say that if we would go to greater lengths to not only just try to get a hold of these people by some kind of a certified mail or whatever, but actually visit with those people. We have a lot of people for a lot of things in this county, but if we would actually notify those people and say, hey, there's going to be a meeting, and talk to them on a telephone, and not leave a message, and let them know that there's a possibility that this is going to happen, beside them or across the street from them, we'd be better off. And I guess this additional number of feet allows a little more protection for the person that's right beside something that could be creating noise. And we've been dealing with the thing here south, I think down towards Boonesboro, where we have no noise ordinance in this county, as we don't in a lot of counties. I think the only noise ordinance I know about is Ocean City, and it's very, very, talking to the sheriff, very hard to impose any type of noise ordinance. So you look at the fact that they have these weddings now, and they blast this music till all hours of the night, and there's nothing that the neighbors can do. Why? Because that facility does not have, and maybe there needs to be more teeth into any facility that's approved thereon, that maybe 11 o'clock or the noise gets turned down or something. It does create a problem.
I agree, and the only thing I can say specifically with our client, that they write into their contract that the music's to cease at 10.
And this is not specific. I'm just saying.
The only thing I would make comment in, generally speaking, with zoning special exception uses, and in my representation of municipalities and over the years, I understand what you're saying. Obviously, notices are supposed to be mailed to all adjacent property owners. So when you look at the tax map, you do that, and generally that includes across the street. Beyond that, you are correct. There isn't necessarily any specific notice that is required to be mailed, nor is it typically mailed. However, there is an advertisement that's put into the newspaper, and there is a posting that is required on the property. I know the county is very strict about that. So in a lot of these scenarios, if you've got 5 acres, chances are there are going to be adjacent property owners who are going to be specifically affected, and they're going to get the notice. Now, beyond that, whether there would be a ripple effect, my experience has been that generally, if it's objectionable, the grapevine, so to speak, gets the word out, and people who may be opposed show up at the hearings. You're right, there are times when somehow it just kind of quietly goes through, but I think in this type of scenario, most of these properties that would be affected are going to have adjacent property owners, and they're going to get the notices, and then there will probably be further input if people believe it's necessary. Or you can always, now I'm getting bigger picture, but you could always change your zoning ordinance to require more expansive notification so that it's not just actual adjacent property owners, but create some circumference of distance around the properties. But that's a discussion for a whole different day.
I mean, do you realize that from that wall to the sidewalk is 100 feet?
I do.
That's it.
I do.
And that's the building. That's not the participants walking around or something happening in the band setting up on this side, or the event happening on this side outside the barn. There's nothing that says you can't have anybody closer than 100 feet from the property line. So I don't want to keep, but Steve.
And also the adjustments that Commissioner Myers' recommendation, it would have nothing to do with the businesses already existing and the ones that are in the pipeline, correct?
Ones that are already existing wouldn't be affected by a new
Right.
regulation, but if sometime in the future they were to expand or apply for
Unless they want to expand.
or whatever, then they could become subject
Yeah.
to new guidelines.
Okay, so also the 500 foot that he's suggesting.
I'm back off, I mean, I'm.
Well, the distance that, whatever distance that you all bring back to us, that doesn't mean that they can't put something other than a banquet facility within 500 foot, well, within that distance.
That only applies,
Depends on how we write it. If we say 500.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that.
If we say a separation between the property line and the building,
Yeah,
then other things could happen in between.
yeah,
We could also write it to say none of the activities could happen in that space between the building. No parking, no tents, no whatever. It could be written that way as well, depending on how specific or how general
yeah.
it's worded.
Well, I want the property owner to be able to do as much as they can with their property. They're paying taxes on it. But I understand.
You know, the use that's creating the noise that's going to be
Correct.
objectionable to an adjacent property owner could easily be not in the building. It could be, you know,
Yeah.
a pen set up outside or a tent or something like that. So we'll have to find a balance between
Yeah.
the two.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners?
Can I add that if I'm assuming we're going to come back to you with some additional suggestions, and that might lead to the need to have another hearing, depending on the difference between what we proposed and discussed in this hearing and what the new words are. We may have to have another hearing, just so you're aware of that. The time will be considered.
Okay, last chance, commissioners. Okay, the public hearing is now concluded. Last opportunity for comments. Yeah,
Just, may I say one comment? Or on notification about zoning and such, like you're saying, it's in the newspaper, you send it in the mail and such. I travel a lot throughout the country. A lot of times I am gone for 30 days to 45 days at a time, so I do not really get my mail.
that's my point right there.
okay. Thank you. Okay, the public hearing is concluded. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning applicant A&W Plus Incorporated. They want proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The meeting procedure will be as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter. The applicant will then have the opportunity to testify, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Public comment and testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the applicant will have the opportunity for a brief rebuttal, because the applicant does have has the burden. The hearing and the record will then close, and no other comments, correspondence, or emails will be considered. The commissioners may discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. And if we do have anyone here today that would care to testify and participate, we will need you to stand up and take an oath provided by our county clerk. We have any citizens here today that's going to participate in public hearing?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the responses given and statements made will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Okay, we'd like to ask Mr. Goodrich, Director of Washington County Department of Planning and Zoning, to present the information.
Well, thank you for recognizing that it's me and not Jill who's making the presentation as it says on the agenda. Good morning. This is RZ 17009. A public hearing for the case. on an application made by A&W Plus Incorporated. They are the contract purchasers of the property, and they're requesting a change in zoning, or what we refer to as a map amendment, on 11.7 acres that contains the former Conococheague Elementary School. They'd like to have the zoning change from rural business, or I'm sorry, from rural village to rural business. At this point in the hearing, I'd like to submit the entire contents of the case file for the record of the hearing. The file contains the application, including a preliminary site plan and a list of the items that need to be addressed from the zoning ordinance and the applicant's statements about how they plan to address those items. And you have that information. There's also the staff report and analysis. There are the agency responses from county engineering, county's environmental management division, the state highway administration, and the plan review and permitting departments. There are also the public notices of the Planning Commission's public information meeting that was held on September the 18th, and the mailing list of over 150 adjacent property owners who received notice of that opportunity to comment. And then there are also all of the paperwork and the notices that go along with this hearing, including that same list of adjacent property owners that were all notified twice about their opportunity to comment. Also in the file, the Planning Commission's recommendation, which is in favor of this rezoning application, and the minutes of that Planning Commission meeting where they discussed and came to that recommendation. Most everybody knows where the former school property is located. It's on the south side of US Route 40 between Walnut Point Road and the US 40 bridge over the Conococheague Creek. The elementary school that's on the site, or the former elementary school that's on the site, was constructed in 1960, and it was closed recently, about a year ago, I believe, 2015 or 16. The county advertised for bids to acquire the property, and A&W Plus was the successful bidder, and they're under contract to purchase the property. The applicant has indicated plans to convert the former school building into an assisted living facility, and in the future, there are plans for construction of an adult daycare facility and medical offices on the property that would be geared towards the seniors living in the assisted living facility. These are all indicated on the preliminary site plan that are part of the application, and that site plan is in the agenda material as well. The rural business zoning district is not your traditional district that requires a discussion of whether there's been a change in the character of the neighborhood or whether there was a mistake in the original zoning. Instead, the rural business district is what we call a floating zone, and the zoning ordinance specifies 4 criteria that must be met in consideration of this application. First, that the property not be located within a designated growth area, which it is not. That the property has safe and usable road access, and we refer to the use of the property as an elementary school for the last 50 years, and the transport of students every day during the school year to the property. The owner is also aware that a traffic study may be required as part of the site plan approval, which is one of the requirements that need to be met. Number 3, the on-site issues such as sewage disposal, water supply, stormwater management, and those kinds of things that go along with redevelopment of the property need to be adequately addressed. And while the application doesn't have specifics about those things, again, the applicant is aware of the need to address those items per certain guidelines before they'll be able to get an occupancy permit. And finally, number 4, the rural business would not be incompatible with existing surrounding uses on the property. We did not receive any public comment during the Planning Commission's public information meeting about any concerns for incompatibility, and the uses that are proposed are in fact allowed in the rural business district. All of the analysis that the Planning Commission is directed by the zoning ordinance to perform has been addressed in the staff report that you have in your agenda material. It addresses population change, the availability of public facilities, transportation patterns, compatibility with existing development in the area, consistency with a comprehensive plan, And again, in this case, those specific criteria that I just mentioned that the ordinance requires to be met before the rural business district is assigned. And all of those are summed up for you in the staff report that you have. And there are also several maps locating the property, showing you what is proposed on the site, and showing you the zoning on the surrounding parcels. And I believe there's also an aerial photograph that shows actual existing uses on surrounding properties as well.
I guess you're considered the applicant today?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you considered the applicant
Am I
today?
considered? No, I'm not considered the applicant. The application came from A&W Plus, and I believe somebody's here representing.
Okay, so now that we'll have the applicant, do you want to add or?
I think Steve did a very good job. I agree with him.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll open it up for public comment. We have anyone here from the public that would care to participate? Okay, commissioners, questions, comments, thoughts? I do. Any of you all have any comments or thoughts? By going from RV to RB, I guess somewhere in there you must have the list of what can be constructed or what can be built or be done on an RV property versus the RB property.
Yes, that's all contained in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah. So if assisted living is what I'm hearing and all of that there. So how are we assured that it's going to stay to something like that? Nursing home, assisted living?
The rural business zoning is dependent, or this review of this case is dependent in part on the use that the applicant is proposing. So he said in the application he's going to do assisted living and in the future possibly adult daycare and medical offices for seniors. Those are going to be, even though there are many other uses that are allowed in the rural business district, those three are the ones that are approved for this rezoning case. If for some reason these uses are not successful, or if the applicant wishes to add things that were not considered in this process, if they're judged to be significantly different than assisted living or adult daycare, they would have to come back to the Planning Commission and present those new uses, and the Planning Commission would make a decision about whether there was enough of a difference between what he said and what he's proposing now, or if there's a similarity. And if it's different, there'll be another public hearing, another opportunity for public comment, and further approval of those new uses. But there could be disapproval of those new uses as well if there's such a drastic difference, or if it's not a permitted use in the rural business, then it couldn't be allowed anyway. But we essentially go back through this process again for things that are significantly different than what's being proposed. And furthermore, in the future, if this use goes away and the applicant would sell the property, for example, and a new owner would want to establish a new use, we also go back through this process. And if this use would go away and the property owner is not interested in establishing a rural business, the rural business could be removed and it would go back to the rural village that it is now. That would not be a public.
Why wouldn't we have done just a special exemption?
I'm sorry, what?
Why couldn't we have done just a special exemption for this?
For this?
Mm-hmm.
That was part of a.
The use isn't allowed by special exception in the RV zone, right?
Right. This use triggers the need for the zoning change.
So under RV, we couldn't have done a special exception to permit what's being proposed?
No, because this use is a permitted use in the RB. And this process is very similar, this rezoning process.
I guess I'm confused as to a special exception to me would be asking to do a business or whatever of some sort that wasn't permitted on a piece of property that had a different zoning or designated use title.
Special exception uses are usually listed in the ordinance, in the rural village, there is a list of special exception uses that are allowed.
That's what I was,
And this is not one of them.
gotcha, okay, that's what I was looking.
Okay.
So we're not just changing the zoning. We're changing it with only these categories,
Yes,
period.
right. That's right. Well, you are changing the zoning, but it's based on
But based on
certain,
those categories.
certain
And
uses, yes.
So if they come back at a later date and want to change it to something else, or they would have to come back at a later date to change it to something else, other than these items that you just
That's
talked
right.
about, assisted living and daycare. and-
Adult daycare and those medical offices. They would come back to the planning commission with their new use. The commission could say, this is similar enough to assisted living, and you can go ahead and do it. Just file a site plan and get your approval. Or the planning commission could say, there's a drastic difference between these two. We need to go back through the public review process.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, any additional information from the applicant or anyone? Okay, public hearing is now concluded and the record is closed. Last chance for commissioner comments. Okay, you want to decide on this today, or you want to bring it, have the attorneys put some stuff together and bring it back?
Well, I mean, you've come to a consensus today, and then we know what to put in the documents to bring back to you for final action. Or if you want to take it under advisement, we can put it on a later schedule. But I do know that there is some desire to move forward.
We're moving forward. I want to get it back on the tax rolls.
Yep, exactly. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, we didn't have any
This thing going.
community health crowd.
I'm moving forward.
So, we're going to have a consensus to move forward. Everyone okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, we'll prepare the documents and get them back to you at the next available time.
Okay, thank you.
There you have it.
Didn't feel as productive as it was.
Okay, County Commissioners, Washington County Water Quality Bonds, Series 2018A and Series 2018B, authorizing resolution, Sarah Greaves and Ms. Rader. How are you two today?
Good, how are you?
Incredible.
Oh, not sure.
Yeah, today we're here to talk about the Conococheague wastewater treatment plant. We are currently going through a project right now for upgrades and improvements to that water treatment plant. Mark Bradshaw wasn't able to be here today in case you had any questions, but we can certainly accept them and get back to you if you do have specific questions on the project. The Conococheague wastewater treatment plant is a $33 million project. Like I said, it is already included in the CIP budget. And we currently issue bonds to finance a project like this. I can tell you that construction began about a year ago, and the estimated completion date for the project is May of 2018. So it is about 75% complete. Mark came to you a little while ago, a couple months ago, regarding a change order for an engineering study for this loan that we're discussing today. The engineering study cost $30,000 roughly, and at the time it was suggested that the loan, instead of issuing bonds for the project, would save the county between $500,000 and $700,000. I have run numbers to show what we now believe the savings would be doing a loan rather than a bond financing for this. And the savings are between $900,000 and $1 million. And the reason for that is because of a large portion of this loan being loan forgiveness. And the amount of loan forgiveness for Maryland Water Quality is $462,000. So with that, I will turn it over to Lindsay to give you some more information and to discuss the resolution.
Good morning. Nice to see you all again. The Maryland Water Quality Financing Administration has approved a loan in the aggregate amount of not to exceed $1,849,660. And as Ms. Greaves just pointed out, it is willing to make 25% of that loan subject to forgiveness. Now, when the county obtains a loan from the administration, what the county actually does is issue one or more general obligation bonds to the administration. In this case, you'll issue one bond for 3/4 of the final loan amount, which will be treated as a base tax-exempt loan or bond, and another bond for 1/4 of the final principal, aggregate principal amount, which Water Quality refers to as a taxable principal forgiveness loan. The base tax-exempt loan will have a normal amortization. It will be a roughly 20-year amortization based on the current assumed closing date, which will be in January of 2018 as of right now, and the assumed project completion date. It appears that amortization of the loan, principal payments will begin on February 1, 2019 and run through February 1, 2038. You'll make annual principal payments and semi-annual interest payments. Now, if for some reason the loans close later in the year, or the project completion date changes between now and when we actually go to loan closing, there is authority in the resolution for the amortization schedule to be changed in accordance with the administration's programmatic requirements. The Series 2018A bond, which is the base tax exempt bond, the interest rate on that will be set at 25% of the average of the bond buyer 11 bond index for the calendar month prior to the month in which we close. So if we close in January 2018, that interest rate calculation will key off the December 27 bond buyer average. To give you an idea of what recent interest rates have been, and this is only indicative, had we closed the loans in October, the base tax exempt loan would be at a 0.70 interest rate, so less than 1%. The principal forgiveness loan has no scheduled amortization, and that's going to be represented by the Series 2018B bond. Instead, as long as the county does not default in any of its obligations under the loan agreement that it enters into with respect to that bond, within the 10-year period between the date we close on the loans and the 10-year anniversary, Water Quality will automatically forgive any repayment of that loan, and that's why there's no scheduled amortization. If, however, the county does default, Water Quality has the right to call the entire B bond principal immediately induable, payable on demand, but interest will only start to accrue from the date of demand. Now, I've been doing these Water Quality principal forgiveness loans since 1999, and I've never seen the administration call one, even for any sort of default. So I think it's a fairly rare instance in which the administration actually would call a loan. So really, it has to be treated as a loan on your books until it terminates, but in many ways, in many jurisdictions, think of it as grant funding, though it is structured as a loan. Again, you will look to pay any principal or interest on both loans in the first instance from wastewater system revenues, but of course you'll be backing the payment obligation with the pledge of your full faith and credit. The resolution contains standard provisions regarding execution of the bonds, registration and transfer of the bonds. The A bond, which is the base tax exempt bond, that is subject to prepayment only if the director of the administration allows you to prepay that bond, and that rarely happens, but a 0.70 interest rate is pretty hard to beat. Because there is no scheduled amortization on the B bond, it's not subject to prepayment. The county will actually enter into two separate loans, one relating to each bond, and the substantially final forms of the loan agreements are attached to the resolutions as Exhibits A and B respectively. The substantially final form of each bond is Exhibit F to each of the two loan agreements that is attached to the resolution. The proceeds will be advanced to the county pursuant to the loan agreements. We think at this point we'll probably actually get all the proceeds advanced at closing because of where the project actually is. The resolution acknowledges the county's obligation to pay administrative fees with respect to the base tax exempt loan. Further acknowledges that upon an event of default, the administration could call the applicable bond immediately due and payable. And most importantly, there is an intercept mechanism built into the loan documents such that if the county were to default on a bond, the administration could intercept any revenue sharing or tax revenues that normally the state collects and transfers over to the county. So there is an intercept mechanism. The resolution contains standard covenants relating to the tax-exempt status of the Series 2018 bond and authorizes officials to execute a tax certificate. Loan proceeds can be applied only as permitted by several applicable statutes. And that is the general overview of how the loans will work.
Okay, any questions, commissioners? I guess I have one here. Down there where it says the president and the vice president, this is under the report and brief here, Rob.
Mm-hmm. I see that. Mm-hmm.
Within the section 1 of the resolution, it provides that references to any official by title, if there is an acting or an interim official who has been appointed, that person will subsume the duties. The resolution also specifically provides that if there is no acting or interim chief financial officer at the time we go to closing, any of the powers delegated under the resolution to the chief financial officer will be exercised by the director of the Office of Budget and Finance unless the county commissioners determine otherwise in accordance with the county code.
And Kim Edlin is the director of the Office of Budget and Finance. Kim is not available today due to illness. Sarah is the deputy, and Sarah is here today. Thank you, Sarah.
So we anticipated, just in case.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments, commissioners? If none, motion to move forward with the recommended motion.
Second.
Motion is second to support the recommended motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here, the extension of the sunset date provided for resolution number RS 2016-16, which established the Conococheague Development District from December 31st, 2017 to December 31st, 2018. Ms. Greaves and Ms. Rader.
And here we are again.
And there you are. How are you today?
This will be a lot shorter than the last one, and this is regarding the Dot Foods TIF and the sunset date that is currently included in the resolution. And I don't want to steal all of Lindsay's thunder, so I will take it away to her, give it to her, but it's just to extend the sunset date for 1 year, just because they have had a delay in their construction plans or what they plan to do.
And as you may recall, at the time that the original designation resolution was adopted in 2016, it merely created the district, did some other housekeeping matters related to creation of the district and creation of a special fund. It did not authorize any bonds. This extension resolution does not authorize any bonds. This is really just getting us 1 more year. We've been told that Dot Foods, Inc. hopes to complete its expansion plans by the end of this calendar year so that hopefully we will know something fairly soon in the new calendar year. This is really a housekeeping matter, and it is not at all uncommon in tax increment financing or potential tax increment financing transactions to come back to a governing body to ask for an extension of a sunset date. We put the sunset dates in sort of to hold people's feet to the fire or based on expectations of how fast a transaction is likely to move at the time we adopt an original development district. It's not, these are complicated financings, complicated transactions, and so it's not uncommon to have to extend the sunset date.
Okay, motion to move forward.
So moved.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move upstairs to the Ag Advisory Committee luncheon, and we'll be there for an hour.